So hi there. I would like to introduce Laura Stavinoha. She's a singer, a composer, and a multi-instrumentalist, and she's much more than that, as we'll come to talk about. Laura and I have known each other from the scene in Amsterdam. We've sung in the same experimental choir, although not at the same time.
Yeah, we
have?
We did overlap for
Okay.
like a few months or maybe even a year.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I've worked with you, I remember.
Okay. And we know some of the same people in the scene. And what's really cool is now we're talking about a book that Laura has written. I'm going to take it. I'm going to show you. It's called Voice, a Multifaceted Approach to Self-Growth and Vocal Empowerment. I think this book is really cool. It's something completely new. And in fact, when I read it, I was really blown away. So what's interesting is I have a lot of experience in singing, teaching people how to sing. I've even done this whole, it's like a course or an academy on looking at the voice in a more holistic way. And still with all that experience, this was really new to me. So I think it really deserves a platform, and I really would like to tell the viewer more about this book. So yeah, let's dive right in.
Okay.
So Laura, can you tell us a little bit more about your experience as a singer?
Yes, let's start with that, right? What did I do as a singer? Many different things. And I started in my youth writing songs, playing at the piano. Maybe you did that as well. And I started performing there, very shy, very modest. But I had my first performing experiences back then. But then later on, I switched to classical singing. And that's where I got most of my training from. And although I didn't finish a formal training, I ended up in my late 20s doing experimental music theater. For example, with the director Miranda Lakerveld.
Mm-hmm.
And well, as you know, there's Marlijn Twaalfhoven who also does this experimental music. I've worked with him as well. And yeah, apart from that, I did the usual requiems, oratorio, solos, soprano solos. And I had an act, a music theater act, The Floating Diva, where I performed opera arias in an umbrella dress, a dress made of umbrellas, floating on the water. And that was a dress by costume designer Victorine Pasman, and we've been traveling around the Netherlands and Europe with this act for quite some time.
Yeah, it's maybe interesting for the people who are watching. You can look up this the floating diva on Google, and you'll see the magnificent dress floating in the lake in Den Haag, right?
The Hofvijver.
Yeah, the Hofvijver.
Yeah. That's one of the places we went. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. So you did all of that, and if I just may ask for shortly, what brought you to like the experimental side of singing or performing?
Yes, that's a good question. I like to try new things. I don't think I would be satisfied by just being a soprano and singing the usual soprano stuff. As you know, it's quite fixed, the role you have then. And I like acting as well. And I know this director, Miranda Lakerveld, from a young age. And so when we were young, we did this together. We performed together. She wrote plays and we performed it. And I did singing and acting, and even to the extent of absurdism.
Yeah.
We did plays from Peter Handke with just sounds, no words in the beginning, things like that. I was always attracted to that, to explore and to see how far I can get with experiment.
Yeah, I think that could be like a little. I'm thinking like if I did like a lot of experiments as well, so I'm thinking like because you're quite an intellectual, so maybe it's like also the search of like trying to find out how does this thing work, like what's performance, what's the effect of music and what's the effect of singing. So I see sort of a very interested spirit when you tell me about like this. It's like an exploration of how does this world work.
Curiosity.
Yeah,
I think you bring it down to curiosity, which is basically what I am about. Music, not only music, but life and people in general. So that's it. Curiosity. It's a short answer.
Cool. And so you did a lot of different types of schooling. Like I read in the book that you did a lot of. You started a training and then you abruptly broke off and then you started again. So tell us something about that.
When I was 17, I went to the Conservatory of Rotterdam. Now it's called Codarts. Yes. Yeah. And I studied there pop jazz. It was one department where jazz and pop music was one. And I didn't stop abruptly. I was sent away after a year. It didn't work well for me in combination with my singing teacher, and after that year, I wasn't sure yet about pop and jazz music, and that's when I wanted to develop my classical voice. I'm a high soprano, and especially then. That type of voice was not seen as the right voice for pop music. Now it's completely different, but we're talking about, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago. And then they said, you just don't have a pop voice.
And you said, but what about Kate Bush and Minnie Riperton?
I don't know. I didn't say things like that. I wasn't a rebel. I was trying to execute what people told me to do. So, and it didn't work. But okay, after the conservatory, 1 year, I continued classical training with a really great vocal teacher called Lida van Tol. After that, I went to the UK for a music course. It was a combination of musicology and performance. Also there, it wasn't the right fit for me. And there I consciously chose to stop, but it was because the curriculum was maybe too advanced. And to put that in the context of music education in the UK, it's quite high level from secondary school. So you can... you have A levels and O levels, and if you study A levels in music in secondary school, it's like the VWO level in the Netherlands, and we don't have music here on that level.
No.
So I was confronted with with too much. Too much of a high level. Yeah, exactly. And I couldn't work with that. So then I decided this is not for me. It cost me too much stress. I will go back to Amsterdam, where I continued to study just musicology, no performance again. But next to my university course, I continued training classical singing with Charles van Tessel and later on Charlotte Riedijk. Two wonderful vocal teachers that I've learned so much from. Yeah.
Aha. And what does all of this have to do with the description of your struggle with stage fright? I mean, that's also in the book. Like, is there because I can sense that there's like a real connection, you know, trying this and doesn't really work and sort of struggling your way through in your early career?
Yeah, but in the stage fright, a lot of people think, oh, I don't have stage fright. I thought it myself because it's not a conscious experience.
Yeah.
That's important to know. So you can feel quite confident, you know your material, you're ready for your performance. But then when you enter the stage, something happens in your body. It's tension building up because you have to perform, and your heart rate goes up, and maybe you lose connection with your deep belly breathing. And somehow, in my case, that sabotaged my performance. And it even went worse than that. At some points, I got blackouts. And I even got blackouts in my own songs, where at some point I was singing and accompanying myself on the piano at the same time. Just totally draw a blank. Like, where am I now in the song? And then, you know, plowing through, making it to a okay ending. But it's quite stressful.
Yeah.
And the last stressful experience I remember when I decided I need to look into this, or I need to do things differently. I'd like to share that with your listeners. Is when I auditioned for the choir of the National Opera.
Mm-hmm.
I went for an audition. I thought I was ready for it, and I sang an aria that I know really well. Ach, ich fühl's, from the Magic Flute by Mozart. I've performed it over and over as the floating diva. You know, it was a piece of cake for me. However, when I entered that performance room where I needed to audition, it was like a rainy day. It was raining cats and dogs. I was the last person of the day. And those 4 people, I remember them very well. They were sitting there in front of me, and they had their faces like this, and their arms crossed like this. They were absolutely not interested in listening to another singer. Mm-hmm. And now I know what happens then. But I started singing like as if I didn't feel consciously that I was nervous, but I lost contact with my breathing, and for the first time ever, I couldn't hit the high note. Mm-hmm. It's never happened before in a performance. And afterwards, I was flabbergasted. Like, what did happen here? I had no idea. Now I know it's when people give you these signs from their facial expressions, like I don't want to listen to this. Mm-hmm. It does something to your nervous system, and it gives my system the feelings like, this is not safe, you need to get out of here. They don't want you here. You're not welcome. So then I am not able to perform.
Exactly. Yeah, so and this is important because in the book you write like very elaborately about this type of things, right? You talk about what the vagus nerve does, and what you can get into a fight-flight reaction, or you can feel really at ease, and you can feel like you can be social and be in interaction. That's the second state. And then there's a third state. What is it again?
The freeze.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That is the blackout. That's where you are unable to speak or sing, or you lost your words or your music.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
Yeah. And so is it so that everyone who experiences stage fright, whether you know it or not, is in that freeze state?
Not necessarily. It is a scale. They call it autonomic ladder. Like, if everything's fine, if you feel safe, connected, then it's called socially engagement, and you're able to perform. Your voice reflects this with variation in intonation, variation in rhythm. That's how you recognize it in yourself and others. However, when you are maybe only slightly focused to perform a task, this is like a safe version of the fight-flight mode. It means there is energy building up in your body to perform. And if it's unsafe, energy is building up to fight or flee. But it can also be just to perform a task. And that's also why you need to have a little bit of tension before a performance, because you need that focus. It's just for everyone, this amount of tension is different. And if you're really sensitive, you can drop down the autonomic ladder and it becomes unsafe for your nervous system. And yeah, when you are prone to even becoming more unsafe or feelings of stress, then the freeze comes in. But it's not for everybody. There are people who have never experienced a freeze state.
Exactly. And that has to do with the sensitivity types that you also describe in your book, right?
That's my theory, yeah.
Yeah. And this is a theory you developed on your own?
The overexcitabilities in relation to the voice, that's what I have developed on my own.
Yeah.
The overexcitabilities are overexcitabilities. They are a model from a personality theory we'll come across later, I suppose. But the relation to the voice, is something I developed.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so you see, this is really interesting material, guys. Stay with us. Okay, that's really cool. There's these moments in life that you seem to have changed direction. And it seems to have happened a lot in your case. What's the reason for that?
Well, the reason... I already mentioned the education I enrolled in didn't work out for me. Same happened a lot with jobs. And I think that for a great part of my life, I was trying to fit in at places that were not made for me. Or I was trying to do things that I thought were expected from me. And as it turns out, I need to be in different places. But it's not the places or the jobs that you think about in the first place. It's been quite a journey to find out what I need to do in life. It's still developing, of course, but music-wise and also working with people with a voice, it took me quite some time to figure out.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think coming to the place where you wrote this book, that's the perfect place for you to be. It's like a mix of intellectual curiosity, a lot of insight into the human psyche, and an ability to understand and to apply these theories in a practical situation. So that's really cool. So I wanted to ask you, what is it that drives you to help other people?
Yes, help. Sometimes help, but
or are you just really curious what makes them tick?
Well, I see it as mentoring, mainly in the work I do with people, and I think why I do this is because there's this potential in people. I think everybody has a certain potential, but a lot of them have no idea what it is, are not living their potential, or they don't think they have it. But I often see potential in people.
That's really beautiful.
Especially in the areas where they feel quite vulnerable. That is usually where your potential lies, because it's what's important to you, and if it's important to you, it makes you vulnerable.
Oh my God. So okay, that's great. So this is the bridge. So let's talk about, because so I read the book, guys. I read it, and then the first thing that happened to me while reading this book, and it's great that you know this because I haven't told you yet, is I felt reassured. I was reading this, and of course, I'm a singer as well, and I still have my problems. And I thought immediately, okay, I have to interview Laura for this podcast. And to be able to do that properly, I want to book a session with her first and then see what it's like to work with her. Because reading is interesting, but it stays like on an intellectual level. Oh no, I was actually moved and I felt reassured, but it's still like this, it's the mind doing the work. I wanted to experience it myself, so I went to her and we had a session. And yeah, maybe you can tell from your point of view what we did.
I will. You came to me, to my studio, and you had a specific question. And correct me if it's not exactly what you were saying, but you noticed that in certain situations when you performed, your voice automatically was more loud, more pushy from the throat, whilst at that moment it was your intention to sing small and intimate. But somehow you were not always able to do that, or your body didn't respond to this wish from your mind, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I always ask, so in what situations does this occur? And then you came up with a certain situation.
Yeah, like a family context.
Family context, where you were asked to perform in a restaurant together with your boyfriend, right?
Yeah, it was like a whole family gathering, and there's this different thing. So like I want to sing for like the family, but then like there's something wrong about the situation, and you sort of feel like uneasy. Yeah, that type of situation. It happens a lot.
Yeah. I know. You're not really prepared, but you don't want to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone else who is performing seems to be quite relaxed about it. You think, hey, I'm the professional. I'm supposed to do this as well.
Yeah.
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 And at the beginning of the session, I ask you to sing. I sing a song at the piano. Do you remember what you experienced while you sang the song?
I sang the song. I sat down at the piano and I sang the song. I didn't really. No, I don't remember exactly. No, I don't remember. Oh. I sang. Yeah, what did I do?
Well, it was not your own. It was a cover song. I don't remember which one it was.
Oh, was it a Kate Bush?
No, not a Kate Bush. No, but quite. No, oh yeah, I do. You Make Me Feel, of course.
Yeah.
The Carole King.
Yeah.
But quite some song with a lot of power.
Power, yeah.
And by doing that, if you perform that song in front of an audience, people will think things about it. Mm-hmm. They will have an opinion about it, because it's been sang by so many wonderful singers. And then I think we discussed that is a type of song that also makes you want to prove yourself with, right?
Yep. And then we did something really cool. So then I remember you told me to go into like sort of a meditative state. You brought me back to a certain moment.
Yeah, with your eyes closed. Yeah. And I asked you to, okay, let's go back to that specific family dinner. Imagine yourself there. Imagine how you felt, how you looked. Maybe use the senses, smell, look in your mind what it was like. Really go back to the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was like, I remember like going into something and I was like, man, this is heavy. Like I really got this enormous emotional reaction and my body started like moving into place. And I was like, what the bleep is happening here? And that was really intense. And then I thought, oh my God, this is like something important. Like we've come onto something that's essential for like my whole being as a performer. Yeah.
It's scary, right?
Yeah, it was
To
really
go
scary.
there,
Yeah.
yeah. And I know it's very hard or maybe even impossible to go to that place by yourself. But now I have the opportunity to ask you, how was it to go to that place together with someone else?
Yeah, so like on the one hand, it's really scary, but because I know like I'm in a one-on-one session with a professional, I feel sort of there's a safety net, so I'm not gonna die or anything. No, but not no, but really. So
It felt like that?
it felt like yeah, because you also told me, can you go a little bit further, or can you just like let go? And I was like, no, I can't let go. I can't go all the way into this because I'm gonna cry and I can't stop crying. Yeah, that's what I felt. Yeah.
Yeah, and that means there's a lot of, well, frustration and sadness built around situations like that.
Exactly.
And it's not the first situation. It's not something that stands on its own, but it's connected to previous situations.
Yeah.
And every time you get into a similar situation, this sadness and frustration gets triggered again.
Exactly.
And it
exactly.
rises up in the form of a physical reaction, right?
Yeah, totally physical reaction. I had the feeling that my back was arching and I was like sort of falling into like the dark unknown. And I think it has something to do with the fact that, like, maybe I can speak for all musicians or all singers. I don't know, but I'm going to ask you later. For me, it's like there's a really sensitive inside. And so when I write songs and when I sing them and when I record them, I'm like this tiny little girl, like with very pure emotions, and it's really like sensitive and pure, and the world outside is usually a lot meaner than that. So there's this constant struggle with, but I would love to just be able to be small and give you this little beautiful thing, but then it's like, but I can't relax, and I can't just give all of that in that situation. I have to fight.
Yeah. And most of us, we have this protective shield to the harsh outside world.
Yeah. So that's what we were talking about. It's really interesting. I'd love to come back sometime, maybe work on it some more. So what's the difference, Laura, between helping other people and mentoring them?
I would say that helping, I offer the solutions for what people need. Now, I believe that I'm not the one to decide for other people what they need, but people, most of the times, they know it for themselves. Maybe not directly, but deep down inside, people really know what they need themselves. And through mentoring, or you can call it coaching as well, I will help people to find out what they really need and what they want and what is their potential and how they can make use of that potential. But it's not up to me to decide for them.
Exactly. Great. That's really nice. Yeah.
How do you see that in your work with singers?
Yeah, I think that's a really great approach. So, what I do when I work with singers, I really recognize what you said about seeing the potential in someone. So I've had people that come to work with me, and they really not developed as a singer and not developed as a songwriter, but I see this guy needs to be on a stage with his guitar. And then it happens, and I don't really think about that, like, do I help them or do I coach them or do I mentor them? But I think my approach is usually really open, and I really look at the person, and I'm really intuitive, so I probably do the same. I don't expect them to take my advice and apply it immediately, but I just, ask them questions. And when they're younger, of course, I tell them what to do. But yeah.
Of course, and I offer exercises to learn techniques. That is part of it, but it's also up to people to what extent to use these techniques. And I recognize everything you say about looking at the person, working intuitively. What does this person need on this very moment? And that can be different every time.
Yeah. Nice.
Anne, is in your work with singers, is there one specific person that you remember as being a process that was quite transformative?
Yeah, actually, there's one. I remember working with a young girl, and she was a mediocre singer. She wasn't like special. She was actually, her intonation wasn't really good. It was always a bit like off and lazy. And then at one point she was going through like heavy weather at home. I think her parents were like in a divorce situation or something. And I suggested to her, I asked her to come to my house instead of my studio for one time, because I noticed so much is going on. And when she was there, and I took a extra long session, and I suggested to her to start writing, journaling, and maybe songwriting. And she picked up on it, and she's an amazing songwriter. She's an amazing singer. Her singing has become like great. And I can see her like on a stage, like she's the new Vrouwtje or something right now. Yeah, it's really cool.
So what did happen? Why do you think that making her own music, writing her own material, makes this potential becoming to the surface?
Yeah, I think what I felt in that moment when she came to my house in this long session, I felt something like that maybe music and composing could be the healer, and the way from the stuff that's bothering her inside to something she can connect like with the world in this way. And this is exactly what happened. Like, it was magic. So, and because she's like writing from her own experience, and she's being really, they call it just like honesty. So there's a word for this. Like that you're being so honest that it hurts.
Radical honesty.
Radical honesty. It's like something like that. She's being so honest, and she's writing exactly what she feels, and then it becomes a song, so that it becomes art, and it becomes the truth. And this is what's happening every time, like again and again and again. And she keeps on writing and writing. So there's this just constant transformation, and it's just making her whole. Yeah.
That is where music is part of emotional development.
Yeah.
That is special.
Yeah.
And then when it's used for your expression, your creative expression, and your emotional development, then it can suddenly click, right? And no technique can do that for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Beautiful story.
You have a similar story?
Well, I am thinking now of one of my students that I've worked with for quite some time. Also a young girl. It was without any doubt that she had good musical ear. She played piano on a high level, and she was doing classical ballet on a high level. She wanted to sing. However, singing in tune, finding the right pitch in songs, it seemed almost impossible for her. Even like especially the easiest songs, she was always way off in tuning. What I did with her then was just free flow expression of the voice, more in the realm of stembevrijding. And when I asked her to copy my sounds, she was spot on and always in tune. And what I think happened there is that for some people, singing is like this, it's hard, it's difficult, it's something you need to learn. And they feel they need to work for it and think about it, like using their minds to sing. And this was especially the case with this girl. And whenever she used her mind to work hard on singing a song, the mind sabotaged everything. But when she cut off the mind, she was directly connected to her musical intuition, and everything went great. And even when the funny thing with her was when I offered her like difficult music, like for instance a classical song, it went much better, because then the function of the mind was in place, because then there was actually some work needed in order to get this right. So for her, it was easier to sing a difficult song than to sing an easy song.
So recognizable.
Yeah, it happens, right?
Yeah.
And especially for these people, when you see they cannot sing a simple song, then maybe some teachers will say, okay, lost case.
Yeah.
While it's exactly opposite.
Yeah. So the function of the mind when people are singing, I find this so fascinating. Mm-hmm. Like in the last couple of years, I've been telling people we're just like dancing through the studio. So we're just moving all the time.
Yeah.
We're not standing still, because I want them to stay out of this. No, but I have to, and then I have to, because when you start thinking, when the neocortex becomes really active, the body seems to like go into a freeze, or into like this state of I don't exist. And when you're not thinking and you're not like analyzing stuff and you're just going, everything is fine.
yeah. It's often the mental, intellectual capacities that hold you back from singing well.
Yeah.
Don't think is the hardest thing to execute.
Yeah. Is the type of work that we did in our one-on-one session, is that is it like the work you do with others?
It can be. Depends if someone is ready, willing to go there. Sometimes it's too far ahead to do an exercise like this. People approach me to work on their voices, and for some of them that is just it. Just with a little bit more context, and we'll look at the reactions of the nervous system, but that's something you can talk about. But this introspection exercise I did with you, I do it a lot. I always prefer doing it, but I don't bring it in with everyone.
Yeah. But it's like it's a possibility. It's one of the things you would grab to work.
Yeah, if possible.
Yeah.
It's quite effective, I'd say, because a lot of things happen there. It's not only that you find out what's going on deep inside of you, but if you can stay there without dying, if you can just let that be, how uncomfortable it is, maybe next time you are in a similar situation, you have processed some of the emotions and it will not hit you as hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've experienced that already.
No, I think it's like with me, it's like really quite like it has its fundaments in my soul. Yeah. So yeah, we would probably need to like do it a couple of times. Yeah, nice. Yeah, so sometimes I'm going to talk to you guys at home now. Sometimes I get called because I have a singing school and people send me emails and they call my business. And I've actually sent some people to Laura as well. So if you think, oh my God, I have this thing with my voice and I really don't understand, and it has something to do with something that's happening in the outside world and I can't control, or whatever, you have some unknown issue with your voice, think about maybe contacting Laura. How can people find you and how can they find the book, Laura?
They can buy the book in all bookstores, online, and bookstores in your neighborhood, in the Netherlands and Belgium. You can also buy the book in my web shop, and you go there at shop.useyourvoice.nl. My website is www.useyourvoice.nl. That's for my voice training, voice coaching. And for my own music, I have another website, www.laurastavinoha.com.
So thank you, Laura. That was really nice talking to you. So you're the first in this new series of interviews. I just started this now.
Oh, I'm honored to be the first
you're
guest.
the first. One of the next people that I want to interview in this setting is Jan Korti.
Oh, yes.
And Jan Korti is my teacher. He taught me everything about stembevrijding. The English translation would be something like liberation of the voice. And I studied with him for 2 years. And he's celebrating his 40-year anniversary of his academy this year. So, and his work is sort of in line with yours. So I would actually really like to introduce you to him. And since he's going to be one of the next people on this podcast, maybe we can do this thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe you could, maybe you have something to ask him. Maybe there's something about his work that you would like to know, and so I can add it to the interview.
Oh, that's a good question. I will look into that.
Okay, so yes. We'll have it in written form. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Anne, for having me on your brand new podcast.